Hello.
Hello, good morning. How are you?
I don't think it's morning. No, it's not morning.
It feels like morning. I only woke up like an
Yeah,
hour.
I know. I slept later than usual this morning too. I got up at 8 instead of 4.
And I had to have time to get my coffee.
Yeah, I know.
So, um, I was looking at, so we're supposed to get new laptops next year at work. And I'm assuming, I mean, I
You
could be
mean
wrong.
pads or laptops?
Laptops. We have iPads. The kids have iPads, but we have an iPad and a laptop, which
Well,
I'm glad because, well, the it's really hard to do like the paperwork and stuff that I need to do on the iPad.
yeah,
Like,
I get
just
that.
doesn't work the same way.
No,
Actually, the kids complain too. They prefer the MacBooks. But anyway, I was looking at the new one. I assume that's the one they're going to give us because it's quite a bit cheaper. It's called the Neo. And I was looking at it and I saw the like Klarna and Affirm and stuff, which I have used Affirm once to buy my MacBook. Actually, I think this month is the last payment. um, and but anyway, I was looking and I was like, it said 0% interest, which I don't really remember that probably was the case when I paid for mine, but I really needed it and I just needed to get one. So I was like, 0% interest. How are they making money? If they don't charge interest, how are they making money?
is it like for a certain amount of time?
Yeah. So there's different ways. I've seen different ones that do it. Like sometimes you can make like 4 or 6 payments in a fairly short time, like 2 months, or you can make like I paid for mine over the course of, I think, 8 or 9 months.
And it's free interest that whole time?
Yeah. And I was like, how are they making money if they're. So anyway, I looked it up and they charge the retailer a fee. And I was like, okay, well, then why are these retailers seem so like they kind of push it? Like, yeah. And I was like,
But that's
so
about the
why?
same amount they pay on credit card transactions, right?
Well, yeah, it said that it's usually between 2 and 6%. I think credit card transactions are 3%.
What's the difference?
I guess maybe to the retailer, there's not a difference. I don't know. But I was looking at, because, I've heard stories of people using it and I've seen like buy Taco Bell on with payments. And I'm like, that's insane. But anyway, I was looking and it says that part of the way that they make money besides just from the retailer is when people miss a payment and then the free part goes away. So it says it's like the longer term loans, which I think a lot of times can be like up to a year or whatever, do charge interest if you miss a payment. Then they charge between 10 and 35% interest.
My
And I'm like, well, how is that any different than a payday loan? Like
yeah,
isn't that,
it sounds a whole lot like Payday.
yeah. And I didn't think about this. It said the other thing, well, I was like, why are retailers, if they're paying this fee, why are they okay with this? Like, why not only okay with it, but like pushing it? And it said because I guess I'm sure they've done statistics and stuff on it, that you're more likely to actually complete a purchase and spend more if they give you the option to make payments.
Okay, so um, if you miss a payment and they charge you the extra the interest, does that interest is the interest charged on everything,
I think
the
so.
whole
I think it's
balance
charged
on the
on the
card, that
whole amount.
everything that you bought on it?
I think so.
And what about future purchases? Does it charge on future purchases then too?
No, I think each purchase is like a new transaction. So it doesn't, I
It
don't think it does that.
starts over.
But if you,
Look at their
so
terms and conditions on one of them.
well, it does say that the 0% is usually on shorter split payment plans, like 4 payments in 6 weeks. But another way that they make a lot of money is they sell your information,
Well,
spending habits,
I don't
what you
think
buy.
think there's any. anything that doesn't sell your information anymore, including the government.
And so, yeah. And so so I asked, like how many people are using this type of thing to buy groceries,
Yeah.
because I've seen that that's a thing that people are buying. It said 9% of, they call it BNPL, buy now, pay later, users say they've used loans for groceries, up from 25% a year ago and 14% 2 years ago. So a 15% increase in the number of people using it to buy basic necessities in the last 2 years. Can't imagine what's happened in
If
the
you
last two
think
years.
about it, all the people that are saying that prices haven't gone up, that has to be some kind of, I'm not saying total proof that they have, but that has to be a strong indication that
Well,
prices
yeah,
have
it's
gone up.
gotta be that people are, well, okay, so this says part of this came, it says when it was DoorDash partnered with Klarna to allow people to make payments on food delivery.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, it said people joking about Americans now needing to finance cheeseburgers because we can't pay, and then it said, this was interesting, more than half, 54%, said that they're using these loans to make ends meet. And if you, which I remember ends meet, where do you get ends meet? I don't know. It's I don't know. That's the butcher for ends meet. Um, and it said among families with kids under 18, it's up to 62% of people using this are using it, um, just to get by from paycheck to paycheck.
I don't doubt it.
And then 47%
Well,
of
if you
people
think
say,
about it, okay, here's a comparison maybe to what how I would compare to something that came to mind. They don't have layaway anymore.
no. Yeah,
And
I guess it's kind of like layaway, sort of.
in a way, I can see, except that the merchant gets all the money at one time and they're not responsible for holding on to the inventory until it's paid off. They
Yeah, so this
probably
is
are saving a lot of money.
better for everybody except the buyer, except the customer.
Right. Right. But I'm just saying, as far as people buying things that they can't afford immediately, they used to have, people used to put stuff on layaway. Not only, I mean, I know part of it used to be like for Christmas gifts so that kids
Yeah.
didn't, find the hidden gifts. They stayed in layaway and until closer to Christmas. And I know that some people did it for that reason, but a lot of people did it because they couldn't afford not to.
Yeah. And it also, I mean, this isn't surprising, but 74% of people have said that they've paid late within the last year. And it says, of course, who's using it? Well, people that make under $50,000 a year are more likely to use. Well, that makes sense. And it said that that's more likely because people that make that kind of money have trouble getting credit. And so this is way of getting credit without getting a credit card.
I wonder if it's going to apply to gas.
I don't know. Let's see.
As the gas prices have gone so far up now, people, I don't know how people are going to be affording gas for very long without.
Klarna and Zip both have partnerships with Chevron and Texaco, allowing customers to split gas payments into four installments over 6 weeks. You download the app, use a pay in store option, generate a virtual card, and pay at the pump. So, yes, you can literally finance a tank of gas. So if you think groceries, gas, um, food delivery, if you do that, those are all I mean, the food delivery is not necessary, but gas and groceries are.
Exactly.
And if you're financing your basic necessities and then getting behind in payments because you miss a payment and they skyrocket I mean, yeah, people are getting, uh,
The housing prices are going up.
The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, under the current administration, actually withdrew the rule that would have classified buy now, pay later as credit card issuers, which would have required them to have more consumer protections.
Right.
So they took away
So
that.
they are more like payday loans because payday loans are not regulated. Or if they are, there's not much regulation to them.
Well, interestingly, one of
Look it up and see what it says if there's how much regulation is on payday loans. The last time I read anything was a long time ago that I read anything about payday loans, but at that
so
time, whenever it was, legislature wasn't doing much about it because a lot of them had financial interest.
all right. So the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is the one that makes those rules. They enforce the Truth in Lending Act, which basically says that they have to disclose the full amount of the APR of the loan. So but it says disclosure is not the same as protection. They can legally tell you that it's a 400% APR, but still give you the loan. Like there's
Right.
nothing stopping them from doing that. And it says in March 30, oh, your birthday, 2 days before a new rule took effect, the Bureau announced it would not prioritize enforcement or supervision of the rule. So
That's kind of
technically
what.
the rule exists, but it's not being enforced.
Right.
And then it says,
It's because a lot of the legislators have financial interest in those payday loan places.
yeah.
They do. I
Um,
mean, that's what
I'm
that
not, I'm,
yeah. They make a lot of money.
it said state-wise, there's four categories basically. Prohibitive, basically meaning they cannot charge more than 36% APR, which is still really high.
Oh, that's over a third.
Yeah, restrictive, hybrid, or permissive. 20 states and DC have imposed caps around 36%. Uh, the Federal Military Lending Act caps rates at 36% for active military. I mean, the fact that active military needs a payday loan is absolutely criminal. It
They're
says about
making
12
them
mil.
borrow from outsourced, you
Yeah,
know, when they all of the money they could set up a payday loan system for military within.
or they could just pay them more. Um,
Yes,
the guy that did you see the thing about the guy that burnt down that warehouse and basically
I heard about it, but I don't know really much about it.
I don't know the details. I know that his reasoning was you have to pay people more. And I guess he must have, I don't know if he was having an argument with them. I haven't looked too much, but it says about 12 million Americans take out a payday loan every year. 80% of those loans are not repaid within the initial 2-week period. They roll over, with sometimes borrowers paying hundreds or thousands of dollars in additional fees.
What percentage?
80% of payday loans are not repaid in the amount of time.
Oh my, that's a
It says in 30 states where payday loans are allowed, borrowers earning an average of $25,000 a year, which is poverty wages, pay over $2.2 billion in fees and interest for payday loans.
the thing is. I don't like the fact that they'll turn around and say, "Well, they did it to themselves."
Yeah, I know. Well, don't take the loan. Okay, well, I just won't feed my kids.
Right.
Um,
But on the other hand, then the restaurants are adding fees and automatic tips and some kind of a fee that I saw somewhere about a community fee or something like that. I don't remember what it was.
yeah, they're adding all kinds of fees,
And
automatic
so
tipping.
the customer is not only paying for the food and service, they're paying the wage for the
Yeah,
wait staff.
because restaurants still can pay like $3.25 an hour for wait staff.
I know.
Actually, I have two of my students that work at a
No
restaurant.
problem giving a tip. That's not
No,
a
if you're
problem, but that's
actually
supposed
doing
to
a
be
service.
above and beyond, not
Well,
supposed to
also,
be adding to their base salary.
I don't like, and I don't blame the workers.
No, I don't either.
I blame the, where they're asking for a tip on just literally going in and picking up my own food.
I won't do that.
No, I won't either, but they ask for one.
I
And it's
know, I've
like,
seen it. When I
yeah,
first started seeing a tip jar at one of the pizza places that I, have been to, thought maybe I was thinking at the time, I was thinking, I wonder if management knows that these kids are doing this. I had no
yeah,
idea it was
yeah.
a thing. I thought the kids were doing it, without the management knowing it. And it's when
Management is
I
telling
found
them that's how
out,
they get part of their pay.
I know. And when I found out, I was, I was pretty angry because, you know, you're, you are expecting somebody to hand you something and they're not even like carrying your luggage or anything.
No, I know.
It's
Like,
like,
literally, you go in, you push the button on the thing, you pull the pizza out, you don't even interact with the staff.
right. Right.
And
I
if you
mean,
can't
it's like having to pay the chef,
separately, yeah,
It's it's amazing. And a lot of those, a lot of the pizza making is automated too.
some places it is
Some
now, yeah.
places yeah, it's like they have those machines that they put the dough in it and it flattens it and shapes it and whatever, and all they have
Well, and
to
then
do
they
is
even got
put the
ones that put
topping.
sauce on it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I won't. I will not. And
But
it's not that
like I
I
said,
don't feel bad for the kids, but
well, one thing I've noticed, I mean, obviously I go, more places than you do, still not a lot, but
no, I
is
really
that
don't go anywhere.
the people that work those kind of jobs now are not just teenagers anymore.
Well, yeah, that's true. And so
It's
that's
not,
their way of saying, well, these people really need money more than the kids do. Well, maybe they do, but then you need to take that into consideration. And unfortunately, the people that are the workers that are not just kids, they might not have a choice of where they
no.
work.
I mean, I doubt there's a lot of people that go, middle-aged and older people that go work at McDonald's because they want to,
Exactly.
you
Unless
know.
there's a management position or something, but
Well, maybe, but, it's
that's not the case in a lot of,
no.
and they have always, you know, older older people have always worked at fast food.
Yeah.
Even when McDonald's first started, then burgers and fries were 15 cents, there was at least one, manager that was
Yeah.
somewhat older, but then I wasn't all that old either. I think I was around 15 when we first had a McDonald's in the area. Um,
Do you remember where it was?
it was on Woodson Road in Overland. I still remember that. And you had to stand outside. It was just like walk up windows.
No inside seating?
No. At some point, it wasn't, I don't know how long it took. They did add like a vestibule area, for cold weather, but, um, but originally, no, it was just kind of like an ice cream, you know.
Well, that's what a lot of these new coffee places that are opening up are. There's just a walk-up window or drive-up. There's no, like,
Right. Yeah.
seating.
Yeah. It was.
But they make those people the stand out in the weather to take orders. Like, you go in line and there's people, they have iPads and stuff, and they take your order and then you wait in line until it's your turn to pick it up. But they're out there in the heat and the cold and the rain and, and again, I'm sure they don't get paid much. I know that my students that work, I have a couple of kids that work at a, like, kind of like a sports bar. And I asked them, I said, uh, are you doing, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, waiter. Are you being, are you a waiter or what do you do there? And they're like, oh no, I don't want to be a waiter. They don't make, cause they only make 3.25 or whatever an hour, and then have to hope that they get enough tips to make up the difference.
And, I understand that the reason that started was to help restaurant owners that weren't big franchises.
Yeah.
It was people had a tendency to tip more, I think, you know, earlier on,
In
but
Missouri, it's not it used I know it used to be 325, but now it's 750. It says which is 50% of the state minimum wage plus whatever is so employers have to make sure that you make at least $15 an hour between tips and your base pay. So how many employers are actually doing that? Because I'm sure that, a lot of kids don't know that. So it says the employer's obligation is $750 in cash, and if the server doesn't make enough in tips to reach 15 total, the employer is legally required to make up the difference, though. In practice, that rarely gets enforced. Yeah, that is just another
yeah,
form of,
enforcement is a big problem.
oh, the $15 an hour is frozen until the Missouri legislature votes or acts on it again. So it could be $15 for the next 10, 20 years if they never, well, it's like I was trying to explain to my students the difference between state and federal minimum wage, because federal minimum wage is still like 750. Because I remember when I when I was working for that accountant and I was making $10 an hour, I remember that was pretty good compared to what some of the classmates made at, McDonald's or whatever. I don't know what the
Wait a
minimum
minute.
wage was.
Echo, what was $10 an hour worth in from
5.
1995 to today? $10 an hour in 1995 is worth about $18.89 an hour today. That's
So still more than minimum wage, but not, it's
well, what's minimum wage?
Missouri minimum wage now is 15.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it went up. It went to 325 or not 1325 or 1375 in 25, and then at the start of 26, it went up to 15. And
No,
that's
but it was at the lower end for a long, long time.
yeah,
A
yeah,
long, long time.
yeah. Um, but there's nowhere
But the
in the
thing is,
United.
they don't adjust everything at the same time.
No,
They, you know, they don't adjust the poverty level. They don't adjust the GDP. No, is that the one I'm talking about?
no.
To make it fair, you know, they give they give you 3% increase, but the
Cost of living goes up 5%.
exactly that's my point. I'm trying to remember all that stuff. It doesn't stick in my head.
For I asked what the poverty level was. The federal poverty level, which is what Missouri uses for a single person, is $15,960 a year, which is $1,330 a month. You can't even get an apartment. Like I've seen statistics that show that there is no state in Missouri in the country where you can rent a 1-bedroom apartment on minimum wage.
No, I'm sure that's true. That's what I'm talking about. They don't make the adjustments on the other things when they do something.
And so a person working minimum wage at $15 an hour, which comes out to $31,200 a year before taxes, is technically above the poverty line. But you can't live on that.
They don't take into account the increase in rent prices and
No.
groceries. Because for one thing, it takes them so long to pass something like an increase in minimum wage that everything else is jumping up along the way. By the time they make that, a law, it's already useless as
Well,
far as helping people.
yeah. Well, this is saying a single person technically is above the poverty line. But for example, a server that has even one child is below the poverty line then, if
Right.
you're making 15 minimum wage. And then they complain about people getting food stamps and Medicaid, and they don't that's the thing. Like
Well, they
I've
don't
seen
look
a lot of
into it. They listen to one side of the story. They don't do any checking.
so I asked how many people on SNAP benefits actually have a full-time job. 85% of people have at least one person in the family working full-time and still get SNAP benefits. That's insane.
But
And
here's
they,
the deal. Some people might hear that and think, well, then why doesn't everybody just get a job?
right. But for one thing, the people that have the jobs that a lot of people would consider, I don't know how you would say
Menial.
that, menial or, service jobs or whatever, which I don't understand how service jobs can be considered menial because have you ever worked with the public? I mean, come on. Uh,
I agree. But, it depends on where you see yourself in the big picture. Do you see yourself way up here and other people are here? Or do you see yourself here? Most people don't.
okay, so this is saying notable policy wrinkle. I don't even want to say it. The one big beautiful bill.
No, they changed the name of that.
They did.
I think I heard somebody say that. I don't know if I think it was when I was watching Congress one day. Somebody brought it up that they changed the name of it. Echo, did they change the name of the big beautiful bill?
Yes, the official short title One Big Beautiful Bill Act was removed during the Senate amendment process. The law now officially has no short title, though it's still commonly referred to as the Big Beautiful Bill.
It says it. So initially, Chuck Schumer invoked the Byrd Rule, which is a Senate budget procedure to raise a point of order against the title. So right now it has no title. The White House settled on the Working Families Tax Cut, but it's still not their official name. So I asked about, let's see. So anyway, according to that, expanded SNAP work requirements to include categories of recipients. Most states began checking compliance in December. It says people who are already working full-time for example, at a restaurant, financing their gas through Klarna and buying groceries with buy now, pay later may also have to document their hours just to keep their food assistance. So people who are just trying to literally make it day to day, and now
What do they have to do with their hours?
they have to document and prove that they're working, I guess, which I don't know if they have to do that now.
Me, okay, I'm confused. Who you mean to get? Okay, so they're concerned that they're not working.
Yeah. They think that people
But
aren't
then if you're working, then they question whether you need it, right?
Yes. So if you work, then they think you don't need it. If you don't work, they think you don't need it because you should work.
That's what I meant. Yeah. I mean, it does. Hmm. It is interesting for sure.
So able-bodied adults without dependents between 18 and 49 who could only receive 3 months of SNAP benefits in a 3-year period unless they were working or in job training. Let's see.
3 months in 3 years,
Huh.
they only get to eat once a year
Per month.
for a month. Oh, wow. No wonder they find dead people all the time on the street. They
Yeah.
thought it was from drugs.
So
It's
it
from
says
not.
expanding the work requirement is because the image of able-bodied people sitting at home collecting benefits. But 85% of SNAP households have at least someone in working, and most SNAP recipients work full-time. It's the people working in restaurants, retail, gig workers, people that drive, now with getting food delivered, now I feel bad even doing that because the people having to pay the prices for the gas.
Right. Well, I saw that the airlines are not increasing, adding a fuel.
Yeah, I saw something about that.
I forgot how they worded it. A fuel fee or fuel tax. I'm not sure how they worded it, but yeah.
So it says a server making $7.50 an hour base pay with no real guarantee that they're going to get the $15 an hour.
Right.
Financing gas through Klarna, buying groceries through a firm when things are tight, but also on Snap, now has to document their work hours every month to keep food assistance, even though they're working full time.
And the tax on tips is going to expire. So if they're relying on the tips that are coming in and not having to give up part of them for taxes, that's not going to last.
I never realized, and I guess I was lucky in that I never had to realize or think about too much how the system is set up for people to fail. That there is no real, even now with, we used to say about like, go to college, get an education, you can make more money and blah, blah, blah. But that's not true anymore either.
Because they changed the rules midstream on student
Yeah.
loans, for one thing.
Well, and that's what, people in my generation that, especially if you went beyond a bachelor's degree, and as a teacher, what I make, it's like you don't want, well, they don't want people to get ahead ever.
Not the majority.
If you keep people worried about where their next meal's coming from and, how they're going to pay their bill, they're not going to pay attention to what you're doing over here.
Yeah, but the thing is, think about this. That could be an answer to the question of, okay, if you're not working, you should be getting food stamps because you are doing something at home. You're worrying about not having any
Yeah,
anything.
really.
That takes a lot out of you. That's a big job.
Yeah. Well, I forget what they said the like percentage increase in rent has been over the last few years. Even I don't know why I get emails from one of the local home builders. But I did look at one of them. And houses that are not really much bigger than the one we had on the first house we lived in Wentzville are starting out at like 350.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me at all.
And I'm like, that's $100,000 house, not a $350,000 house.
But think about this. If they're getting taxes on that, the increase in taxes has gone up a lot as well.
Yeah. And then they tried to get rid of property tax.
Right. Yeah, I don't know how they expected sales taxes to supply the needed income from, for services.
But apparently that did pass the same idea passed in some parts of the county.
Well, I'm sure people didn't understand what they were.
But I was really surprised that it didn't pass out here because I was just surprised that people even understood enough about what it was to know what they were actually being asked to
Well, I
pass.
did share my knowledge. I don't know how many people, saw it or passed it on or whatever, but after I found out what it really meant, I did, post it, because not so much that I was trying to sway anyone. What I wanted to do was help people understand what it was actually saying, because I know when I was working, I didn't have time to look up everything,
No.
and then somebody would say, well, I'm voting this way. And it's like, then you kind of, trust their, trust someone and you go vote their way, but maybe they didn't look it up. And that's all I was trying to do. I firmly believe everyone should, you know, vote the way they want. But
Yeah.
as long as they're doing it intelligently, I don't care if they agree with me. But, people that think they know the answer and they don't, that bothers me. And then they vote the wrong way. Well, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, I mean, what they were trying to do isn't really good for anybody. I mean, it's the
Not
only people
for
who,
not for people. It's good
right,
for corporations.
you know,
And of
but yeah,
course, corporation is a person.
yeah. Thanks, Citizens United. Well, that's a lot.
It is a lot.
Everything's a lot,
But if
they
we
say.
don't talk about it, we stew about
No,
it.
I know. Yeah, I know.
And then
And
we
I
get
know
a
that,
and then we get heart attacks and high blood
yeah,
pressure.
yeah. And, and while I've heard stories of people my age, I know of a couple of girls
Well,
my
Dr.
age.
Pimple Popper had a
She had a
stroke.
stroke. Yeah, I saw that. One
And
of the
she
girls
I
that
think
was,
that it didn't they say she was like 44? I think they said she was 44. I forgot who interviewed her. I didn't even, I hadn't really heard it about it, and she said it was like 4 months ago.
well, I mean, even though I didn't have a stroke, I know how scary that is to all of a sudden not be able to talk.
Yeah, you do,
That
don't
was
you?
that was
And
really
it's
scary.
scary to hear it
Yeah, I tried to imagine like you coming in and not knowing what's going on, and you see I can't talk. Like, I'm sure you were just as scared as
anymore.
I was.
Scared and crying and
Yeah. Well, I joke with Michelle about I did not want my last words to be grilled cheese. That was the last thing I said.
before you had the problem.
before I said grilled, and I couldn't get it out, and that was the last. I was like, no, I don't want that to be the last thing I said.
Yeah, her last words were grilled
Last words
cheese.
were grilled cheese. And it's funny that I was able to think clearly enough to even think like, no, don't make that the, the last thing I ever say.
Yeah, that was quite an ordeal
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad that we could figure it out fairly quickly what it was, but
too.
you
'Cause
know,
I hadn't had any experience like that
I'd
from
never even heard of
anywhere,
somebody
myself
having
or
an
anyone else.
experience.
Most
Yeah.
things that happen, I've had some experience with from somewhere, from
Yeah.
someone, either dad, you kids, myself, you
Yeah.
know, grandparents, aunts,
Yeah.
uncles. I mean, but that was
That's a
something
new
I
one.
had
Add it to
not.
the list.
Yeah, I had that was the first for me on that one.
Yeah. And when I was still in the hospital, thinking that I could speak and then recording myself and realizing I really couldn't. That was weird because in my brain,
For speaking.
for speaking, it's normal. But then when I recorded myself and I still can't get a word out clearly, I was like, man, this is really, I mean, it was getting better, but it took 4 days for it to get out of my system, to get that medicine out of my system. And, of course I'm the 1%. Oh, I'm the 1%.
Yeah, for the reaction to the what was the medicine?
Gabapentin.
What is it?
Gabapentin,
That's right. Yeah.
which apparently is one of the most prescribed medications out there. And people have had all kinds of different reaction. I don't know if you call it allergic reaction or,
Well,
whatever, but
think about this. All of the medications that they advertise on TV and whatever, they always have that warning. But for the most part, people don't because everything has a side effect for
right.
somebody at some point, different severities.
Yeah.
But people in general don't necessarily look at all of the things and that it can do. I wouldn't probably have either if the doctor
When
said,
I
"Here, try this." You just do it.
And when you hear that it's, one of the most commonly prescribed medications, you're like, "Oh, well, that must be safe." And it is, I guess. I mean, I don't know what would have happened if I kept taking it. Maybe I never
I
would have
don't know
gotten
that you
this.
would have been able to because you
Yeah.
kind of you just like stopped working.
Yeah, it broke. It just broken.
You got broken. Yeah. Didn't you fall or slide down the wall or something?
Yeah, I slid down the wall because, well, my leg was already, was dealing with my leg and my back. And then I was like, because I thought part of what I was thinking was like, if I had a stroke or something, what if I have a seizure? And so I got up against the wall and I slid down the wall just so I was on the floor in case of, because I'm like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what could happen. I don't, you know, and yeah, I remember being able to write. Like I could still write and it made sense. And I was like, so there was a part of me that thought maybe this isn't a stroke because I could still write and it made sense, but I couldn't think of it, what else it could be.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't have thought about the medication because
You
for
know,
the most part, we haven't really had a problem with side effects from medicines that
well,
I
dad
can
had the
remember.
side effect with the Demerol,
The Demerol, he did, yes. That was
which actually they've given me Demerol before. And I didn't have that. I got the worst headache I've ever had in my life.
Demerol does. I mean, I've had Demerol. It really doesn't even do anything for me. It does not relieve pain for me because
Yeah.
I think that's what they were giving me when I had the gallbladder problem. And I don't know, I think they timed through the night, they gave me maybe 3 doses of Demerol. It didn't do anything.
Well, when I went with my back, they just immediately gave me morphine because,
Morphine works for me for, those kinds of severe pain, but the Demerol didn't do anything.
yeah.
I don't
Well,
know if morphine would have. They didn't give me any that I know of. They just, as soon as they could get me in the operating room that next morning, that's where I went. And I was so glad. I was so glad they were taking me to the operating room. Oh my God.
with my back, since I think I was in the hospital for 3 or 4 days before they did the surgery, I was just on morphine the whole time. I don't even really remember being in the hospital with my back.
Hmm.
Um, other than I just remember I really liked the chocolate cake. That was I really liked the chocolate cake that they had from the cafeteria. That was the only thing I remember.
Who doesn't like chocolate cake?
Well, yeah, that's true. There are
Well, I
some
guess
people.
no, Dad didn't like cake, did he?
He didn't like really cake at all.
No.
He wasn't really into sweets. He was more into like potato chips and like he liked the salty, crunchy, I
Mhm.
think more than because I remember he never wanted cake on his birthday.
We always did it anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, we wanted cake. He just didn't want cake.
You don't want cake, you're getting cake. I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, any excuse for cake is fine with me.
Right.
But yeah, that is one of those. I don't know if I put that in my. I don't know if I put that in my list of stories.
Oh, memoirs.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I
I
am gonna do that.
I I could probably it is kind of funny that you really have I mean, when you stop and think about things that happened through the years, it's like, "Oh, yeah, I forgot about that." That
Yeah.
was pretty good.
Oh, also I forgot about. I just remembered when I shot the neighbor. Remember?
Well, I remember the what kind of was it a BB? A thing?
Yeah, they. I think that the parents thought it was a cap gun because you pulled the trigger and it just made a noise. It didn't shoot anything. And but apparently it was a BB gun, and there was a BB or a rock or something stuck in the barrel. And it just so happened when I pulled the trigger, whatever was in there shot out and hit him right between the eyes. And I wasn't aiming at him; I was just holding it. And it was like I couldn't have done that had I tried. And thank God he didn't lose an eye. I mean, I was a kid myself. I was only like 10,
Yeah,
but
I know.
he was like 4 or 5. But yeah, that was another scary. I just see a drip of blood coming down his, you know.
I forgot what the mom and dad said.
I don't think they were mad at me. I think it was more that they were upset that
The kids
the
had that gun.
Yeah, because they
But
had
it was a
found it in
toy?
their
Wasn't
yard.
it a toy gun?
It was a toy gun, and they had found it in their yard. It wasn't really theirs, and I think they were like, "Oh my god, we shouldn't have let him play with it," kind of thing. I mean, I'm sure that there was a bit. I don't know, even as an adult, you're going to blame somebody. I'm sure there was some of that towards me, a little bit, maybe, but I mean, I was a kid. I didn't, and I wasn't doing it on purpose. I wasn't even aiming it at him, you know, but Hermie's staring at me. Oh, I wish you could see him. He's staring at me over the top of my computer like, what are you doing? Hermie.
Yeah, Minerva hasn't bothered me once. I don't know where she's at. Oh, she's probably looking out the window over there. She gets behind the drapes and looks out
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
your
All
window.
right. Well, I should probably go do something.
All right.
All
Well,
right. Well, I will talk to you later.
all right. Have a good
All
day.
right. You too.
I don't know what I'm going to do either.
All right.
All right. I
I
love you.
love you.